Started.
Got it.
Okay, good evening
Uh,
to one and all present here. Hope you're all safe and healthy. Uh, on behalf of all the ISI students, I welcome all of you to this lecture. Today's student lecture will be given by Harshul Khanna. He's in his third year, B Math, and he has various interests like algebraic topology, geometric group theory, and hyperbolic geometry. I welcome him to share his views on knot theory. The students are requested to keep yourself on mute unless asked by the speaker. Hashul will speak for about 60 to 65 minutes, and then we're going to reserve about 20 minutes for the question and answers. Please type in your questions in the main chat box, and we'll field all the questions and ask him. Over to you now, Hashul.
right. Hello, everyone. So my main plan was to kind of make this an interactive session. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So if you want, you can just unmute yourself and ask some questions in between the lecture. Right. Let's begin. I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Great. So basically, what knot theory is, so what do you mean by a knot? A knot is basically when you think in common layman terms, you think of a string and you're tying it up in some way. That's a normal knot to you. A mathematical knot is basically that structure, but the endpoints are joined together. So you can tie it in various ways. For example, you can tie your shoelaces, but then just join your endpoints, right? So so first of all, let me give you an intuitive sense of a knot. So it's basically a string, and we assume it to have zero thickness, and you tie the knot such that it has no self intersection. So for example, this I'll choose a different color for the notation I'm doing. So right. So this is not allowed. Like this, you're meeting two strings at one point itself. So you're working in three-dimensional space. So if you take a string, so it represents your interval. Say you have your. So for example, I have this straight line. So this is your 0 to 1 interval, and I'm imagining this interval in your three-dimensional space. Then I'm tying a knot in some way like this, and then joining your two endpoints, however they may shape to be. Right. So a string is basically a function from 0 to comma 1. So an interval, a line in your sitting in your three-dimensional space, and tying your joining the loose ends basically means you're instead of getting a function from 0 comma 1 from an interval to r3 your three-dimensional space, you're instead getting from a circle to r3. So yeah, that's the definition of a knot. It's an embedding. Embedding means, so whenever I say embedding, it means you imagine it sitting inside your R cube, this three-dimensional space. So in formal terms, it means it's continuous, it's injective, and also a property of it is obviously there are no self-intersections because injective of a circle in your three-dimensional space. So this is an example of a knot. Here is an example of knot. This one. So you can see we took this is your normal shoelace knot joined by the ends. So while working with knots, it's not always easier to imagine it in 3D, and working in three-dimensional space, we make our life easier by actually projecting the knot on a plane. We take a shadow of the knot on a plane, and we make it clear uh, at the crossings which strands are above and which strands are below. So you can see, for example, here is a knot, and here are three planes. We the same. These are all the projections of the same knot. Obviously, a knot may have many different projections, and so here is some examples of some common knots. This is a knot, which is the simplest you can imagine, just a circle. You take an interval, join the loose ends without tying any knots. This is a trefoil knot. Trefoil knot basically is this one. This is a trefoil knot. This basically means, so you start with a string, you put it here, then you uh, here, and then you join the ends. This is basically your shoelace knot. And while projecting, you can see, so this is called a crossing of a knot. This, where in a projection, a crossing is basically where two strands meet. So there will be always one understrand and one overstrand, because that's how it is in the three-dimensional space. We want to represent the whole knot as it is in the three-dimensional space. So this is a trefoil knot. This is the most easy non-trivial knot. This is the most basic knot that is not a knot. So one question that arises is, how do we distinguish between knots? Of course, like if we have this, we can always introduce some distortions, right? So suppose this is your unknot. I can make it wavy like this, and it's still the same embedding of a circle in your R3. It's the same knot. So how do we distinguish between knots? If we can deform one into another without using scissors or glue, that is without cutting or pasting any of the strands, such that the curve does not pass through itself at any point in the deformation, then those two knot projections are equal, or those two knots are equal. So for example, this unknot, so suppose I take, okay, let me try to, yeah, this, actually I have a picture ahead, let me show you. Right, this one. So for example, consider this knot. You can, so imagine this in 3D and just imagine untwisting it, right? If you untwist it, you eventually get a unknot. Is this clear to everyone? Why this one is an unknot, or any of these is an unknot? Basically, you can just twist that strand and you get an unknot. Just a yes or no would be very helpful. I actually can't see the chat, so if anyone puts anything in the chat, just like.
Yes, Bhaiya.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's move on to, let's move back to where we were.
Hello, Bhaiya.
Yeah.
Bhaiya, I had just one question, that you told that how we distinguish between knots, there we deform it without using scissor or glues.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can we extend it to to have some different dimension also? I mean, ultimately a knot looks something like a circle, right? So
Right.
it has some radius. So can we change that?
Not exactly, not radius, right? So that's where, so see, so knot theory is a part of topology. What topology means is you study everything up to continuous deformations. You don't care about the exact size of things, exact dimensions of things. You can imagine just everything up to continuously deforming it. So we can, so imagine this string made out of very flexible rubber. You can wrap it around it, so you can deform it in any continuous way as you can think of. So there is no radius involved here. As for the dimension part, we are just having the embedding of a circle, right, in your three-dimensional space. I don't see how dimension comes in here. If you want to elaborate on your doubt more, it would be helpful.
So what does
So-
no is self-intersection mean?
Yeah, self-intersection would mean, so this is your strand, this is your strand. Suppose so here, for example, in this crossing, I see that one strand is going above, one strand is going down, because that's how it is in my three-dimensional space. But here, if both of these, so if there is a point such that two strands pass through that same point, then that's a self-intersection. We don't allow for self-intersections.
Like means it should not means intersect, sort of means it should go above it or below it, like that.
Yeah, exactly. It should not intersect. Two strands would never intersect. We cannot pass one strand through the another one. We always have this relation that one is under, one is over, and we can just continuously, we can maybe distort it in a continuous fashion such that the under one comes above, but we can never just pass it through the other strand, right? Is it clear?
Okay, sir.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's how we distinguish between knots. If you can deform one using the other without cutting or pasting any strands, and also ensuring that the curve doesn't pass through itself, then that's a knot deformation, and we get two equivalent knots. So for example, this knot, this, for example, you can see this, actually let's consider this one first, this equivalence. What we did here was, if you can see, we stretch this strand and just, so we stretch this strand and just put it through here, right? So you can see this is a continuous deformation. We are not, we are never using any of these cutting, pasting, or we are never allowing the curve to pass through itself. So these two knots are equivalent. Similarly, this is basically just a distortion. if we represent every curved line in a not exactly a straight line, but a nice manner, then we would get the same knot. These two are the same knots. Okay, now how do we tell that if two knots are different or equivalent? So one most basic question in the most basic question in knot theory is to show that there is a knot that does not unknot in a three-dimensional space, of course. So the trefoil knot we showed, you can actually just try this. Try making it using a string, and then you will observe that however you try to deform it in a three-dimensional space, unless you cut it or glue it in some places, this will never deform to your unknot. So this is actually the simplest example of the non-trivial knot, as I mentioned. So, but we have not showed this. We have to prove this fact that this is a non-trivial knot, that it does not unknot. So that will be one of the questions I'll be tackling today. Right. First, let's talk about all the basics. So now, how do we tell if two knots are different or equivalent? Of course, that includes the question: how do we show that trefoil knot does not unknot? Okay. This is actually another projection of the trefoil knot. So as I said, we are continuously deforming your knot, right? So you have, so can you try to deform this knot into this one? Here, this one, the trefoil knot. I would prefer you try for 1 or 2 minutes and come with ideas how we can try to deform this one into the trefoil knot. Like, what are some strands that you see that can be resolved or trivially resolved some? Like, I can tell you, for example, so this is your strand, right? And this strand goes under this whole strand. So we can just slide this strand. So we can just slide this strand in this direction to join like this, and we will get the same knot, right? That's a example of a continuous deformation. We're just sliding that because both of these pass under the under that overstrand. We can just slide it through your overstrand and we get a same knot. What would next step be? Can you see any? To resolve a knot, to resolve this into a simpler knot, because this looks very complex. Do you have any ideas? Just stare at the knot and see if you can do some operations. If you can just imagine it in 3D and just try to think how you would deform it into a simpler version of itself. Okay, let me actually give you a hint. Look at this place. This one place. What can you do with it? If anyone has any ideas, you can just let me know. Anyone? Right. Let me actually tell you the solution for
So
this.
can we
Yeah.
like open that loop? Can we open that loop?
What do you mean by open?
I mean, it's not well defined, that term. I mean, like this, like that knot won't be there. That's what I mean.
This
That
one?
loop thing won't be there. Yeah.
Right. So are you trying to convey this one? So
The
basically,
yellow one.
just
Yeah.
untwisting it. So
Yeah.
So basically, going from taking this strand to here, like something like this. So you don't encounter that single knot. Are you suggesting that only, or are you trying to? So
Like I'm trying to simplify this. Like
Yeah, exactly.
I like to open that part. I mean,
That's what I was confused about. Like opening, do you mean cutting and pasting in some sense, or just unraveling this twist?
unraveling the twist. Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's a very good operation. So yeah, so we can simplify this by just simply going around this and here. And so we can avoid this one knot, one place of crossing. Right. So try this as an exercise to prove that you can actually unravel the whole knot into the trefoil knot. Let me remove all the
How would
annotations.
one go about proving such a thing? Like,
Yeah, that's what we are here to do, right? So
oh, okay, sorry, okay, sir.
let me, yeah, that's it. Right, so this is our trefoil knot. So obviously we cannot continue like this. For example, look at this knot. This is actually your unknot. This looks very complex. You cannot just give a relation like v slide here, slide here. It should take infinitely long time, right? So this is an unknot. A simpler unknot is this one. So this looks like trefoil knot, but what we did was, so look at trefoil knot. Let me erase this part. So what your trefoil knot is, here look, so if we start following this loop, right? So start from here. One strand goes above, then one strand goes below, then above, then below. So at each crossing, once you go above, once you go below. What I did was change this strand from under to below. So this above strand becomes the under one, and this below strand becomes the above one. So that's how I got this knot. But this is actually just a knot. Can you imagine this in three-dimensional space? And so this loop, sorry. So this loop, just untwist it and you get the knot. You can imagine that, right? So this one is a simple example.
Just bring it down, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get, this is an unknot, but this is a complex example of an unknot. So this does not help us. Also, this does not help us in proving non-equivalence of knots. We can still try to prove equivalence doing some moves or something. But how can it help in proving non-equivalence? For all you know, if you try for 5 hours, this cannot resolve into some other knot. But if you try for 5 more minutes, that knot may resolve. So a strategy. So in mathematics, it's a very common strategy. Whenever you have to differentiate between two things, is to introduce an invariant. An invariant is basically is a property that does not change under what the operation you are doing. So for example, here we are doing continuous deformations. So I want to introduce a property of the knots that does not change under the continuous deformations. And that's how I will prove that two knots are different. So I will show that, okay, so I've given two knots. I will show that one has one, so for example here, so this is a knot, this is a trefoil knot. I will show that trefoil knot has a property which unknot does not, but that property remains constant under your, the property remains constant under continuous deformations. So that's how I will show that trefoil knot is not your unknot. So actually, this is a list of some basic knots that are none of them are equal to another. So this is a unknot. This is a trefoil knot. This is actually a figure 8 knot, because you can just see a figure 8 coming out of here. Right. Okay, let's move on. First, let us introduce some terminology. I've introduced crossing of a projection before. So of course, whenever you have a knot, you project it first of all on a plane to get these projections, which are easier to work with. So crossing is basically where knot crosses itself in a picture. So here, for example, this region, the one I have highlighted, and in each crossing, you get two strands. One is the understrand, one is the overstrand. And I define the crossing number to be the minimum number of crossings required to present a knot, projection. So for example, this is called a figure 8 knot. Here are three projections of the figure 8 knot. So observe this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This requires 5 crossings, and this requires 4 crossings, 1, 2, 3, 4. We can actually prove that the crossing number of this figure 8 knot is actually 4. That is, you cannot have a projection of this figure 8 knot which has less number of crossings than 4. Also, trefoil knot we saw. So here is the trefoil knot. It has 3 crossings.
Hello, Bhaiya.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I am not being able to clearly see your cursor.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
All right, all right.
Could you change the color of the pointer? Then that would help, I guess.
Yeah, all right. Just a second. How do I do that?
I guess color of the pointer can be changed only from the Windows settings,
Oh, I
not
see.
from OneNote.
Let me actually see if there is a highlighter option. I
Yeah,
can
like
use
that.
this always. Yeah, let's use this. So,
Yeah, the
actually,
higher.
I was having a problem with my writing pad. So whenever I hold my writing pad at a certain place in the OneNote, I'm getting a blank screen again and again. So that's why I'm restraining from going on like highlighting certain places. I'll try to do it in a swift manner. So let me know if you ever have any problem like regarding this, regarding any area I'm referring to. I'll do this with the highlighter, and in general, I'll try to do it as well. All right, let's move on. Right, so yeah, I introduced the crossings of a projection and the crossing number. So the trefoil knot here. Trefoil knot has these three crossings, right? And can we represent? Okay, we can actually prove that the crossing number of the trefoil knot is 3, exactly 3. If we assume for now that trefoil knot is not the unknot. So assume for now that trefoil knot is not the unknot. We'll prove this later in the lecture, but assume it for now. Then we can prove that this trefoil knot has three crossings. So a proof would essentially involve. So basically we want to get a knot projection with crossing number less than equal to 3. Let's try to do that. So if crossing number is 0, so if this is crossing number is 0, then we get an unknot, obviously, because there are no twists or turns there. If the crossing number is 1, these are all the cases that can be that we can have. So here is one understand, one overstand, one understand, overstand. Okay, these two are actually the same. I wanted to do this. This is the overstand, and this one would be the understand. And this is one. So these are all the 4 knots that have crossing number 1. But actually, these are all unknots if you observe, right? So you can see why these are all unknots, right? We have actually solved this before. Can we generalize to crossing number 2? Answer is yes. All the knots with crossing number 2 are unknots. So try following a similar strategy. Try to list some knots. Try to list all the knots with crossing number 2. There are only like 6 or 7, like 6, I guess. So something like this, right? So you can just imagine. So this you can twist this one. You can twist this part. You can twist this part. Let me highlight. You can twist this part. You can twist this part, and you get the unknot. So you can try this. So try this as an exercise that all the knots with crossing number 2 are unknot. So if we assume that trefoil knot is not unknot, then it has to have crossing number minimum to be 3, right? But then we showed there exists a projection of the trefoil knot which has crossing number exactly 3. Hence trefoil number, the trefoil knot has crossing number equal to 3. Right. There is no upper bound to the number of crossings, obviously, because given this, right? I was given this straight strand. I can always introduce this crossing on it, but this automatically resolves by untwisting this turn, right? So these two are the same knots, same part of a knot, but you can always increase your number of crossings. Right. The next term is alternating knots. So we have this knot. For example, we have the trefoil knot, right? So observe at the crossings. As I said before, one is so if we start in a particular direction, let's start from here. Let's start from here. Okay, one is first of all we get over. Okay, just a second. Oh, this trefoil knot. Okay, I've not drawn this correctly. Let me go back to the drawing. Let me go back to it. Right, let's go back to it. Starting from here. This is an understand. Then we get an overstand. Then we get an understand. Then an overstand. Under, over. and we return to the same point as before. So we get a projection. We have a projection in which at each crossing your under and over strands are alternating. So that's an alternating dot. So it's a projection that has crossings that alternate between over and under while traveling in a fixed direction. We start at a point, we fix a direction, and while traveling on it, you get that your knots, your crossings are basically alternating between over and under. All right, here's an exercise. This one is interesting. Show that by changing crossing type. So I suppose I chose this crossing, right? I turn this one into the upper one. This one. So I turn this one into the over, this one into the under. That will change my crossing type. Of course, that might change your knot actually. That will not preserve your knot always. So show that by changing crossing types, you can always get an alternating knot and an unknot. Both are so alternating knot, it's still easy. Unknot is, I guess, a little hard. Yeah, so we will actually, the exercises I'll be giving, we'll discuss day after tomorrow. So do try these exercises. Do I need to mention anything else here? I don't think so. Right, so that's the all terminology we would need right now. So we were talking about deformation of knots. We have these continuous deformations which are not cutting or pasting and which ensures that your curve don't pass through itself. Such deformation of knots are called ambient isotopies. Isotopy means the deformation of the string. So this word isotopy means the deformation of the string. That is your embedded S1. That is your, so this is your knot. The deformation, the continuous deformations of this string would be called isotopies. Ambient would just mean that the deformation is happening in a three-dimensional space. So some operations that are not allowed, no cutting or pasting, no shrinking and not to a point. So for example, you have say, yeah, so consider this, right? Let me use a different color. Actually. Let me use a highlighter first. Consider this. What I cannot do is, so for example, if you have a knot, what you can do in real life is you can take the two ends, stretch them, so you so that all this knot tightens and goes to a single point, right? So this whole this is not allowed here in our deformations. We cannot shrink the whole knot to a point. Okay. Now this ambient isotopies were in three-dimensional space. Let me switch back to my highlighter. Yeah, so this ambient isotopies were in our three-dimensional space, but since we are having it operate on projection planes, these projections, so that it's easier for us to visualize and it's easier for us to do operations, to do computation part of the knot theory. So for that part, we have to work with projections, right? So this is, for example, a projection. Here we have some kinds of operations. For example, planar isotopies. Planar isotopies mean that stretching and shrinking, like to some sense. For example, you have this string going like this curve, following this curve path, right? You can always just shrink it or shape it again to be a to this strand. These two are equivalent. So such stretching and shrinking is called planar isotopies. For example, you can see, excuse me, this upper strand is modified to this curvy strand. So that preserves your knot. This is a planar isotopy, and this is all. This is allowed. All right. So let's move back to our example. Let's try to solve this example actually. This one, trefoil knot. So let's try to prove that this is a trefoil knot. Okay, what I'll do is open a whiteboard and try to copy this knot first.
Hello, Bhaiya.
Yeah.
Bhaiya, can you please formally once state the definition of the trefoil knot? I mean, again
so
and again it is coming, but
yeah. Take this to be a trefoil knot. A knot with this projection is called a trefoil knot. We call this projection a trefoil knot.
Okay.
And this is the simplest knot that does not unknot. Right.
And so by the continuous deformation, if anything transfers to a trifold knot, then we call that to be equivalent to it,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Anything that can be reached to any knot through continuous deformations, those two knots are equivalent. So if I get any other projection, for example, I have this projection, this green marked one, we will show that this we can deform this by continuous deformations into your triple knot. Then we get that these two are equivalent. That's the definition of equivalence of knots. If we can deform one into another by ambient isotopies or this continuous deformations. All right, let's try proving this. Okay, something I want to do. This might take a while. Let me go to a. I'll try to do one thing, but again, I'm having that problem with OneNote for, right now, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it. But let me try to do that. So first of all, obviously, this operation. Right. So the first thing is observe that this strand. First, observe this strand, and notice that now this strand is actually just is actually under this whole strand. So the both crossings of this part of the knot are under this over strand. So we can just slide it here so that we avoid these crossings. So let's try to do that. So let's erase this. So you can see why the previous knot is similar to this knot. Right. Let me actually make it more. Let me perform the planar isotopy. So stretch this strand. So stretch this strand so that it's more visible to us. This and stretch this strand too. Right. The next thing we can observe is this one, this area. Now notice that this strand goes above, goes above this strand once and then below, then under it, right? So imagine in 3D, we take this strand and we move it. We move the upper strand in this direction, so this crossing resolves. Can you imagine that? Is that clear?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Right. Let's do that now. So what I'm doing is taking this above strand and transferring it to your left side so that we avoid this crossing. Right. Let's do that. Right, we get this. We get this knot. So first of all, we avoided these two crossings. Then we are avoiding this crossing. Just keep observing the types of operations I'm doing. So I have, first of all, I slid this knot from here to here. Then I untwisted this crossing. Right, what's next to do? Let's look at it.
Next, can we like untwist that one? Okay, sir.
Yeah, which one? Which part do you want to untwist first?
The part where you just darkened up.
Okay. Wait a second. Let me just resolve these processes like this. Right. Which one?
Yeah.
Okay. So here. Or
Yes,
here.
yes. Is that the first one? The first one. So
The first one. So what do you want to do with it?
Can we like unwind the thing a bit?
and exactly how do you plan to unbind it?
Means just take it from right to left.
So you're suggesting taking this strand from here to here so that we avoid this crossing. Right,
Yes,
that's
sir.
the correct
Yeah.
operation. Yeah. Let's try to proceed. So let me undo this. Right. So basically, untwisting this whole. Sorry.
Bhaiya, also in the middle part, the
Yeah.
strand that is joining, it is the understrand on both its adjacent places. I mean, can you just highlight? I mean,
Which one?
the knot just below it. I mean, the one you have
This one.
darkened, just
This
left
one.
below it, the left one,
Oh,
the
this one.
left one.
This one.
No, Bhaiya, the left one, the left to it. What you have darkened now, the left to it.
Okay, this one.
Yes, yes, that
Yeah.
one, and also the next one along that string.
Next one
Along
along
that,
next. Here.
along that.
Here.
No, not that
The
one.
opposite
I mean,
direction. This one.
yes. No, no,
It's
no. Below, below.
this one. This one. This
That.
one. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that this way. Exactly. So you have this. So basically, this strand. Let me highlight. Is running above these two understands, this one and this one. So we can again just slide it to avoid these crossings. Right, that's correct. We can do that. So basically we can. So you can see it's starting to take the notch, the trefoil notch in. So observe this. This whole strand. This becomes your the the below left circle, and this one becomes your upper circle. So I guess you have to do 4 more operations, I guess, to make this into a trefoil knot, right? So we observed that we only did certain kind of moves, so that's what we formalize now. So we noticed the example where we showed that the given knot was trefoil knot, and we have to see what kind of operations we used. And so motivated by that example, we define the following moves. These are called the Reitmeister moves. So this changes the projection in a way such that the relation between crossing is changed. So the planar isotopies, for example, never changed any crossing. These only this only added or removed distortion in your strings. So for example, in this string and in this string, this only removed or added distortions, but it never changed any crossings. So these Reitmeister moves changes the projection in a way that your crossings are changed. So these are some examples. So also Reitmeister moves, as you can observe, these are ambient isotopies that they do not change the original knot, because you can just imagine it in 3D, and this is all a continuous deformation. For example, the first one, the twist and untwist. So you take this knot, this one strand is going above, under, and then you have this above strand. You can just untwist it to get this unknot type of part of the knot. So put in or take out a twist. Of course, you can always do the reverse operation. If you want, you can add a twist. This is a second operation, poke unpoke. So here we use poke. So poke unpoke would mean taking this and just sliding it across this one given strand, such that the new strands, both the new crossings are either under or both are above. So here we performed the poking unpoking. For example, you observed here when we first slid this portion of the knot to your right side, then since both of these were under, we can just take that part and slide it across the whole strand. So that's where we perform the poke and poke. Of course, you can always do it in reverse direction. Given and this is the more useful direction actually. Given a crossing, given a strand that goes under, you can just unpoke it. You can just take it, slide it to the left side, and get this part of the knot. So what this does is add 2 crossings, or you can remove 2 crossings. For example, you can see that if you go from here to here, you're removing these 2 crossings. The third move is slide. Slide would basically mean So given these two strands, I have these two strands interacting with each other, and a single strand coming. This black one is the one we perform the operation on. So what slide does is we slide this black part of the knot, which totally goes under the two strands, to the other side of the crossing. We consider this crossing, and we slide this part of this part of the knot from here to here to get to this portion. We have these three basic moves that we can perform on a knot. So basically, we can put in or take out a twist. We can add two crossings or remove two crossings if we have this kind of structure, or we can slide a strand from one side of a crossing to another, from one side of the crossing to the other. Right. So obviously, these three moves are ambient isotopies. As you can see, these do not change the knot. You can imagine this in 3D. This sliding, these are all continuous deformations. You never change the knot. A theorem is two projections of the same knot can be deformed from one to another using a series of right dimensional moves and planar isotopies. So suppose you have a single knot and you have two projections of it. For example, consider any two of these projections. So any two of these projections, this or this, or even this one. Our theorem says that given these two projections of the same knot, we can go from one of the projection to another one using these three right-dimensional moves, using a series of three right-dimensional moves. Excuse me. So this theorem is important in knot theory in the sense. So imagine you have to give instructions to a computer to resolve your knot or to show that two knot projections are equal. So you can imagine simplifying that procedure using right-dimensional moves, because these three moves are easily specifiable. Then you can basically, you are saying that if you have any two equivalent projections of a same knot, then you can perform a series of right-dimensional moves to get from one of the projection to another one. So the proof of it, so there exists a proof of it which is not hard as such, but it's technically involved. Like it takes like ridiculous amount of pages to prove this result. You can try to prove it on your own. You can try to read the proof on your own if you want. But we will not prove it here. It takes about 50 or 60 pages of not hard mathematics, but involved mathematics. So this is a theorem. That's why we defined the right-dimensional moves, because this helps us in deforming our knots. We have a concrete way of thinking about deforming knots. Some examples. Okay, let's look at this example. Let me minimize my screen so this all fits in one hole. Right. So consider this knot. I say this knot is equivalent to trifle knot. Let's try to prove it using the right-dimensional moves. So first of all, we see this strand. As the one I've highlighted, and I see this crossing. This I can. So the third one was slide. Slide would mean going from one side of the crossing to another one. So we perform this operation on this strand. We take this strand and we slide it across this one to get it something of this one. As you can see, I have used this. Let me undo this so you can observe it properly. So I've used this operation third one that is we slid this whole strand across the crossing and we get this strand. Now notice this one. We introduce a twist while doing this, so we can always untwist. So we apply the. Actually, I've done another one first. I've used the second one first. You can do any one first. So now observe this strand. This strand is basically representing this one in our second one.
Unpoking, right?
Yeah, unpoking, exactly. So we unpoke this strand and we get this strand. Now we go back to the twist. We can always untwist it using the first move. So we untwist it, and then your planar isotopy is just stretching and squishing it to in the right manner to get your trefoil knot. So we since Reidemeister moves never change your knot, we get that this knot is equivalent to trefoil knot using this series of Reidemeister moves.
The Reidemeister move do not change the knot. Can it
Yeah.
be sort of proven? No, I think that would be trivial.
This is trivial because these are all ambient isotopy in the sense that observe that this is a continuous deformation when
This
you
one
visualize it.
is alright, sir, but what about the second one?
Yeah, second one is just so you take okay. Let me switch. Actually, I'll not switch on the video right now. Okay, let me try to. Okay,
It looks like cutting and pasting. That's why.
No. There is no cutting and pasting. So I guess you're not understanding the. Okay, let me share my. Right. Can you see me? It's better to switch on my light actually. Just wait a second. Right. Am I visible?
Yes,
right. Sir. Okay. So imagine this as a. So this suppose this was a. Let me find correct material to do this actually. Okay. So this was your in the second one. This was your above stand, and so suppose I have. Okay. How do I represent this? Right. Suppose I have this. This is my one strand, and this is your one strand. If I slide my one strand, so you can see right the cross section here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are just sliding this so this knot into this behind this one. This is all happening in 3D. So when you project this my hand and this pen in your two-dimensional space, you can see that this is an undercrossing and this is an undercrossing the above one. If you consider in respect of the right. So this is there is no cutting and pasting. We are just sliding it across this one. Is it clear now?
Okay. Yeah. So this means translation is allowed.
Yeah, this is translation. Continuous deformation means you can always continuously like translate it. You can resize them and such operations.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, let me start presenting. Right. So this basically the stand would mean whenever you see a crossing like this. Is it visible? Wait, is my screen visible?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's visible, sir.
Yeah. Now it's.
So I've shared the wrong screen. Right, now it should be visible. Right, the OneNote is visible, the screen, the notes.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh yeah, it's yeah.
Okay. So whenever you see this, like this straight line and this, whenever you see a crossing, the one with the gap means understand. That means in 3D, that stand is lying below that above stand. So you can see that from going from here to here by sliding across is a valid move, and you're just sliding it across in 3D. So it's an ambient isotopy in the sense that it does not change your knot. It's always a continuous deformation. Right. So we saw this example of trefoil knot. That this one is same as the trefoil knot. The second is the figure eight knot. This is a more non-trivial example. So figure eight knot is a knot that it's not unique in that sense, but it's known to be equivalent to its mirror image. So mirror image would mean, so suppose I have this trefoil knot. So this is my trefoil knot, right? I place a mirror here, and I have this. Basically, have this strand to be. This will become the understrand, and this will become the overstrand, and so on. So basically, change every crossing to other type from under to lower, from under to over to under. You will get the mirror image of the same knot, and figure eight knot is a knot that is equivalent to its mirror image. That is changing. So that is this. This is a figure eight knot. Observe this and this. These two are mirror images of each other if mirror it is along this side. this would mean, okay, so this is a definition that we call such a knot that is equivalent to its mirror image to be a amphichiral knot, and not every knot is actually amphichiral. Trefoil knot is not amphichiral. You cannot deform this trefoil knot into the mirror image of its into the mirror image of the trefoil knot. So here is a series of Reidemeister moves. This is a non-trivial example in the sense this involves a lot of Reidemeister moves. So yeah, so if you want, you can. I'll send you the PDF of the whole of this whole note. You can try to observe this, how this is happening and all. So I'll move on for now. Exercise, yeah, this one is a good one. Show these two knots are equivalent using a series of Reidemeister moves. So in 3D, it's easy. You take this strand and you just flip it here. So you will, if you can imagine, you flip it and then you untwist it. If you can imagine it right, then that would give you the move right now. But we cannot flip this directly over here using one single Reidemeister moves. You have to do a couple of Reidemeister moves, and then you will get this you get this trefoil knot. So show that these two knots are equivalent, and you should only use Reidemeister moves. This one is a hard one. Show using a series of Reidemeister moves that the following knot is an unknot. This knot is actually a knot. Yeah.
Where the flipping we are doing, that is precisely the slide operation that you define, right? I mean, changing across the direction of crossing. Okay.
Yeah, that we're doing, but yeah, you will have to perform a couple. So that was across. So first of all, you have to do this across one crossing, then second crossing, and then third crossing. Yeah, so basically three times that in a row across each crossing. Slide it across, then you get like something like this, and then you untwist it, and then you get your trefoil knot. So yes, three times sliding across each, one for each crossing. 4 times actually, one crossing is here too, and then one untwist. That would solve it, right? This one is a hard one. Show using a series of Reidemeister moves that the following knot is an unknot. This one is hard one to see. Even to see like this is actually an unknot. It's not easy to see that it's an unknot, even if you imagine it in 3D. So yeah, show using a series. Give me a series of Reidemeister moves that would show that this knot is an unknot. All right. So till now, what we have done is we showed. First of all, we discussed some terminology about knots, some properties of it, and some knots which are equivalent to each other. But we haven't shown the most basic fact that I mentioned before in the talk, in the introduction, about the whole knot theory as a whole subject. That there exists a knot which is not an unknot. We have yet to show that there exists a knot which is not the unknot. We claim that trefoil knot is one such knot that does not resolve into the unknot, but we have yet to show. So that's what we will do now. So yeah, so we haven't shown the most basic fact that there is an unknot except other than the unknot. We can do this by showing that trefoil knot is not. We employ the strategy of invariants, as I mentioned before. We give a property that trefoil knots have, and that property is not affected by our continuous deformations. And we will show that unknot does not have that property. Hence, trefoil knot and unknot are not the same knots. That would do. That would prove this fact, that there is some knot other than the unknot. This invariant is tricolorability. We color the strands of your of these knots. So a strand in a projection, this is the official like definition of strand, a word which we have been using till now. A strand in a projection is a piece of the knot that goes from one undercrossing to another one with only overcrossings in between. So for example, let me move back to my right here. So starting from this undercrossing, going to this undercrossing, or this to this. This is one strand. This is one strand, and this is one strand. So you get the idea of strand state. one strand. Right. So this is a strand that goes from one undercrossing to another one while only undergoing their overcrossings. This is called a strand of a knot. We color these strands using certain properties. So we say a knot is tricolorable if each strand can be colored using one of three colors, such that overall in the diagram 2 colors have been used. Excuse me. And at each crossing, either all 3 colors are used or only one is used. So basically, we have to color each strand in some way, such that first is at least 2 colors have been used. So that is to ensure that your unknot is not tricolorable, because you can only it has only one strand, right? So you can only use one color in it. So this property has been included to avoid that situation, that we must have at least 2 colors have been used. And at each crossing, either all 3 colors are used or only one is used. So at each crossing, what happens is, so at each crossing you have three strands, right? You have this strand, you have this strand, you have this strand. At each crossing, you get 3 strands. You have to color them in such a way that that either all 3 colors have been used or only one is used. So this is an example of all 3 colors have been used at every crossing. So one is gray, one is blue, one is pink. So I colored each strand using one color, and we see that this, for example, at this crossings, all 3 colors have been used. But here we can see at this crossing, all three colors have been used. Here all 3, here all 3, here all 3. But here only one color is used overall. Right, this property is called tricolorable, and we see that trefoil knot is tricolorable. So we show that we have seen that this projection of the trefoil knot is tricolorable. We see that this projection of the trefoil knot is tricolorable, but the unknot is obviously not tricolorable. Why? Because there is only one strand, but my property must satisfy at least 2 colors have been used. Also, if you consider different projections of the unknot. This is an unknot. If you can see, you just need to twist it once. First, okay, so this would mean first unpoke it, then twist it. Let me actually just draw it. Okay, first unpoke it. That would mean like this. No, wait a second. Here and then untwist. So this is type 2. Then type 1, 1, you just untwist into 1. You can observe that this is not tricolorable. Why? Because suppose I start giving colors. This is my one strand. I give this whole, let me just, okay. Right. This is my one strand, right? This whole is a one strand. So I start by giving it one color. And now notice this crossing, Here, 2 of the strands have same color. Hence, by this property, all the strands at that crossing must have the same color. So this strand must also be yellow. Again, same thing happens here. 2 strands of the same color. Hence, this strand must also be the same color. So we get the whole knot is actually of the same color, but this violates our property that at least 2 colors must have been used. Prove that this projection of figure 8 knot is not tricolorable. So here are some exercises to determine if some are tricolor. I'll solve this first one later on. But first, let's prove that tricolorability is actually an invariant. So we need to show that continuous deformations do not affect our tricolorability. They preserve tricolorability. So that would mean that if one projection of a knot is tricolorable, then any projection of the knot is tricolorable, right? If you prove that continuous deformations preserve tricolorability, right? So that would mean that here we show that that a particular projection of the trefoil knot is tricolorable. That this projection is tricolorable, this projection is tricolorable. But if we show that that continuous deformations preserve tricolorability, then we will show that trefoil knot as a whole is tricolorable. If you can take any projection since one single projection is tricolorable, then any projection must be tricolorable because we are just performing continuous deformations to get at. And that would prove that any projection of the unknown is not tricolorable. And hence it would prove, since that was an invariant of continuous deformation, that would prove that triple knot cannot be continuously deformed into the unknown. So let's try to prove this. So we just need, because of our theorem here, that the two projections of this theorem, two projections of the same knot can be deformed from one to another using a series of Reidemeister moves and planar isotopies. We just need to show that planar isotopies and Reidemeister moves preserve tricolorability, and a result will follow. Planar isotopies obviously, planar isotopies obviously preserve tricolorability because you have this strand and this strand. There is no difference between these two because there was never any crossing to encounter, right? So we just need to show that Reidemeister moves preserve tricolorability. Right. Let's start by doing that. So a type 1 move basically is twist and untwist. So we have this strand. We have this strand. Notice this is a strand. This has a hole. So if this is a yellow color, that would mean, because at this crossing, two of the strands have yellow color, that would mean the third one is also tricolorable. So that would mean in a knot, if we ever have this type of structure, if we have this twist, then it has to be colored using only one color. And since the type 1 moves resolves this one into the knot, we can just move on as like coloring it as a one single color, because originally also one single color was required. The type 2 move is poking and unpoking, right? So I've drawn this in a different manner, but you can just see like this. Here. So suppose this was so these two are same, if you can see, right? So suppose this was blue color. So suppose this one was blue color, this one was green color. Then when we poke it, that would mean we have this type of structure like this, this, and this. We get two new crossings, right? Sorry. We get two new crossings. So consider this crossing. Because we had that this was blue and this was green. That means either all, because we have the property all three colors have been should be used, or only single must be used. We have used two. That means we have to introduce a new color. So we get a new strand. Observe, we get a new strand while poking, and we color this third strand to be the new color, whatever the third color you have chosen. So we take this to be red here, for example. So yeah, so by making this red, notice at this crossing we are preserving the property that all three colors have been used. So type 2 move does not affect your tricolorability. So this is the proof for type 3 moves. Basically, there are 4 cases. One would suffice to show because the rest all are kind of similar. They follow similarly. So suppose this one was blue, and so basically you can just try to actually take this as an exercise. This is a good exercise. Type to prove that type 3 move preserves your tricolorability. So basically you have 4 cases to consider, but you can start by thinking about one. You will see that you can always introduce some new color, or use the property that one crossing must have all the same colors or 3 different colors to show that type 3 moves preserves tricolorability. So every move, yeah.
Yeah, I had one confusion. In type 2 move, how are we saying that our tricolority is being preserved?
Yeah, okay, let me show it again. So this is a tricolor.
Yeah, I got the coloring, but I see that we have introduced a new color, right? I mean,
we have
a new red color.
We have 3 colors, right, to choose from.
Yes.
So, and in this crossing, that third color is never used. We have no restriction on the number of times the color can be used. So this strand does not interact with the rest of the knot. This strand only interacts with 2 crossings. That was dependent on our the two original. So this third strand was only dependent on the color of these 2 knots, right? So you can just color it in the third color because we have only used 2 colors here.
Okay, Bhaiya, so when do we actually say that the tricolority is being preserved? I mean,
tricolority is being preserved would be, okay. So a type 2 move preserves tricolority would mean that suppose I have 2 situations. So I have this strand, Actually, let me draw it. This to this. A type 2 move preserves tricolorability means if this was tricolorable, then this would also be, and vice versa. So how do we show that? So suppose this was, there are two cases to consider basically. These two strands
Okay, so
initially were,
following the rules, we maximum need 3 colors to color it up.
yeah,
I mean the
and
whole
because
figure.
here
That's what.
only two strands were involved, and we introduce this new strand, right?
Yes, yes.
While poking, we can just give it the third color because this strand does not interact with the the rest of the knot. We have the third color available always because we only have two
Okay,
colors.
okay.
We have okay, got it?
Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
great.
Bhai.
So every move
By
preserves.
definition, strand must be between one over strand and a down strand, right? But there in the
No.
poking,
A strand
both
is
are.
basically between two understands. So here's a definition of an understand.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, so a strand, you imagine like in 3D, the strand would basically in the piece of the knot that you can see directly in front of you. So that would be only consisting
Yeah,
only of
makes sense.
strands, right? So we've showed that every move preserves tricolorability. Equipped with that theorem, that that two projections of a same knot can be deformed from one to another using a series of Reitmeister moves. We have shown that this that if one projection of a knot is tricolorable, then every projection of a knot is tricolorable, or none are. So we have proved this theorem that either all projections of a knot are tricolorable or none are. So that proves that trefoil knot is not a knot. Why? Because we saw that this we saw that one projection of trefoil knot is colorable, tricolorable. That would mean that all the projections of trefoil knot are tricolorable, but unknot is obviously not tricolorable. So that proves that trefoil knot is not the same as unknot. Those two cannot be transformed into one another using continuous deformations. Also, here's the exercise said that proof figure 8 knot is not tricolorable. Okay, let's solve this exercise actually. But first, let's discuss the implication. This would mean that trefoil knot and figure 8 knot are different because trefoil knot is tricolorable, figure 8 is not. But this does not imply that figure 8 knot is trivial. Obviously, if two knots are tricolorable, they can be different, they can be same. So yeah, so we get that trefoil knot is distinct to figure 8 knots because one is tricolorable, one is not. But this does not prove that figure 8 knot is trivial. We use different methods to show that, and this exercise basically represents how we show that figure 8 knot is not tricolorable. Is not a knot. We will solve this exercise, but first let's show that figure 8 knot is not tricolorable. All right, let's try to prove it. I'll use my highlighter itself. Okay, let's give this strand of particular color. Let's give this yellow color. All right. Now we use a different color. I'll use blue. Right. And I consider this strand now. It's blue. Now notice at this crossing, two colors have been used. Now I have to use the third color. So I'll choose green to my next color. So this strand is colored. Now, notice at this strand, what happens? Sorry. Notice at this strand, what happens? We have used two colors. That means we have now the third colors to use. We have to use the third color. But that third color is yellow. Let me switch back to yellow. So we have to use yellow here. But that gives a contradiction at this crossing. Because we have not used we have two yellow ones and one green ones, but that does not satisfy our property. We have to color either all the three strands with the same color, or all the three with a different color, right? So that proves that this projection of figure 8 knot is not tricolorable, but using this theorem we proved that would mean that all projections of the figure 8 knot are not tricolorable. That means figure 8 knot is not tricolorable. That would mean trefoil knot is distinct to figure 8 knot. So can anyone tell me how much time do I have left? What's the time? Sanchin, are you there?
Yeah.
How much time do I?
It's 7 p.m. right now. You have half an hour more.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would be. Okay, so let's try to solve this exercise. This is a very interesting exercise. So this exercise basically this shows figure 8 not is not sorry is not unmet. That's what it shows. Right. The first part is basically so let's try to follow the instruction. What it says, it again uses the same strategy of invariants. So label the okay. First, let's have a figure 8 not here. Let me actually copy paste one figure 8 not. Where is it? This one. Okay, so I should basically. Right. And now I have to paste it here. Right. Let's follow the instructions. What it says. Label the strands of the figure 8 knot with a selection of integers from the set 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 using at least 2 different integers. Okay, observe the terminology all the time along and tell me if you can observe something. I'll highlight all the different important points. So they satisfy this condition at each crossing, where Z labels the overstrand. So okay, let's try to do that. We have to label the overstrands of the figure 8 knot with the selection of integers. So okay, let's start with, let's say this is 2, right? Okay, no, this is so let me take a 4 crossing example. This is 5 crossing example. 4 crossing is easier to work with. Yeah, this. Can I actually do this? Just give me a second. Right. This should be visible to everyone. Is it? Yeah. Can everyone see this? If one of you can say yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we have to consider the strands and give integers from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to this to each strand. So let's start with giving this a 2. So let's give this a 2. So this is actually the overstrand. So I have to ensure that x plus y. So this is x. This is x. This is y. Minus 4 is congruent to 0 mod 5. So we can actually do this. Let's say this is 3 and this is 1. That ensures that x plus so 1 plus 3 minus 2 times 2, that's 0 mod 5. Okay, what else? Now we have to concentrate on another crossing. Let's concentrate on this one now. Also, we have already satisfied this condition that at least 2 different integers have been used. Let's consider this crossing. So which, so I have to give an overstand, this a number to overstand such that 2 times, so this, suppose this was x, then I have to ensure 2x, 2x minus 2 minus 3 is congruent to 0 mod 5, mod 5. So that's 2x is congruent to 0 mod 5. I can just give this the number 0. So let me give this the number 0. Now this strand, this is the
Bhaiya, can
overstand
you
is,
repeat once which one you are considering x?
oh, this one was, I considered this one to be x1. I was considering this overcrossing, right? This crossing. So this was the overstand. So I suppose that it had value x, then 2x minus 2 minus 3. So these two strands, right? This strand has value 2, this strand has value 3. So 2x minus 2 minus 3, that's 2x minus 5. That's 2x mod 5. So x can be 0. Yeah, so let's consider this crossing now. One strand has, the overstand has value 3 already. So that's 6 minus the, right, so this, there are two understands and both have, we have already given values to both of them. So 6 minus 0 minus 1, that's already 0, 5. So that, so the property is still satisfied in our numbering, and we have one strand left, one crossing left to consider. And here overstand is worth 1. We have put one value to this, one value to this whole strand, as you can see, like this whole strand. So that's 2 minus 0 minus this strand, that has value 2. If you just follow this whole strand, that's also 0 mod 5. Great. So that means this this numbering system satisfies our condition. So let me make this a little clear. Let me just erase this. So I gave this value 2, I gave this value 3, I gave this value 1, I gave this value 0. So I've given values to all the strands, and my and all the conditions are satisfied. I've used integers from the set 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and at least 2 different integers have been used, and they satisfy the condition that x plus y minus 2z is congruent to 0 mod 5 at each crossing, where z labels the overstrand. Now we have to show that so we have this labeling system of our strand, of our strands, of this knot. So I have to show that this labeling system is preserved under Reidemeister moves. So I'm doing a similar kind of thing. So I'm proving that this labeling system is an invariant under this continuous deformations. So I've shown that figure it knot. If we prove that under these Reidemeister moves, the labeling system is preserved, that would mean that figure eight knot is first of all satisfies this invariant, and if we find any other knot which does not satisfy this invariant, example unknot cannot have such a labeling system, then that would mean that figure eight knot is different from the unknot, because Reidemeister moves preserves his labeling system, right? So I'll do the first two moves, then you can do the third one. As you can see, it's written like the type 3 one is tricky, so you can take it as an exercise. It's an interesting one. You have to consider some equations and just try to solve them, right? So first, the first is the type 1 move. The type 1 move was untwisting. So I have given this number. Suppose this number was x. Suppose this number was x. This whole strand, this strand, this is one strand, and this is another one. So suppose I give x to this and y to this. So at our crossing, what should be satisfied? 2x, this overstrand is worth x, minus this understrand is worth y, and this understrand is worth x again, is congruent to 0 mod 5. X is equal to 5 mod 5. But since our all the integers are from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, since we had to assign integers from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that would mean that x is actually equal to y. So if you have such a knot, then x would be equal to y. So suppose this was, I gave 1 to this, and I would have to give 1 to this as well. So because of the properties of the labeling scheme. And again, I can just give a single number to this whole strand, and the whole property, because we had to use similar number for both these strands. This means our type 1 preserves this labeling scheme. Right. Type 2 move. Poking, unpoking. Suppose I gave this strand X, this strand Y. Again, a similar argument emerges. Sorry. Excuse me.
So the last one, please show the how is the understand of value X.
Yeah, just a second. Actually, yeah, I'm back, I guess. Right. So what's the doubt? Sorry.
How the understand as a value
Just a second.
X.
Just a second.
Okay.
My OneNote was giving me problems again. Yeah. Problem was just a second. Right. Okay. It's visible now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. Wait. Let me go back and. Right. Yeah. What's your doubt?
So my doubt is that how the understand as a value X.
Oh, because okay. So you're talking about this example, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, my knot was this. This was my knot, right? What's the
Yeah.
definition of a strand? A strand is basically one that goes from one undercrossing to another while only traveling towards only going through overstrands. So this whole, this is one strand. That's clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to give strands a value, right? So I suppose I give this value X.
X.
Then this overstrand at my crossing, this overstrand also has value X, and this understrand also has value X, right? Because they're part of the same. Because they are part of the same strand.
Okay.
Clearer?
Yes, sir. It
Okay.
just looked a bit above. So,
Yeah. So okay, the type to move X, and suppose this was Y and this was going like this. I give this value, right, X. Again, this was X, this was X. Then this was Y. Since this strand, this is a strand, right? And this strand does not interact with the rest of the knot. This strand only interacts with your this two with this setup, that this strand going here, this strand going here. We can assign it one of the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, such that this property is satisfied. So we can actually just take the value 2y minus x mod 5 and just assign that number to this strand, and that makes this two strands makes these two crossings satisfy the labeling scheme. Because this strand never interacted with your the rest of the knot, we can just define a number on it. We can we can label this strand to be a new number. This is same as the argument with tricolorability. When we introduce a new, for example, when we introduce a new knot, the new strand, we got a new strand. We can assign it a new color because it never interacted with the rest of the knot. It only depends on the color of the two knots, the two strands interacting to each other. Right. So, so type 2 also preserves this property, labeling scheme. Exercise solve for, of course, exercise is a type 3 move also preserves tricolorability. This labeling scheme. I'm again and again just saying it with the tricolorability. All right. We have shown that this knot projection, the labeling system of the knot projection is preserved under Reidemeister moves. That means the figure eight knot is has this property that it can be labeled in such a way, and but the trivial knot does not have this property, because again at least two different integers must have been used. This is not satisfied here. we could only use one single because there is only one strand, we can only use one single integer. So unknot does not satisfy this property, but figure eight knot does. But since everything is preserved under Reidemeister moves, we said that the figure eight knot is not the same as the unknot. So we have even proven this that figure eight knot is also not trivial knot. Has anyone noticed what is happening? How did we come about this setup, this labeling scheme? Anyone? Do you have any idea? Like,
last time it was 3 crossing, so we had a 3 color scheme, but here it's like 4 number scheme, something similar.
5 number scheme. Yeah, exactly. 5 number scheme because we are including sequence.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because observe what we did in a tricoloration. This tricoloration, we assigned 3 colors. 3 colors would mean 0, 1, 2. I give integers 0, 1, 2 to each of these strands. Then using at least 2 different integers corresponds to using at least 2 different colors. And this satisfies x plus y minus 2z is equal to 0 mod 5. So in the case of tricolorivity, we would have that x plus y minus 2z is congruent to 0 mod 3, where z represents a overstrand. So this is basically, instead of tricolorability, it is basically p colorability. Excuse me, just a second. Sorry. I'm unable to access my screen right now. Would it be fine? I'll join. So can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
I'll just restart my PC and just join in 1 minute. Just give me a second.
I guess. Oh, sorry.
Right, sorry for that. Let me present my screen. Can you make me the presenter now? Yeah, thanks. Right, is it visible now?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
it is.
So instead of considering tricolorability, this is basically considering p colorability, where this works for when p is a prime. So the figure 8 knot is actually 5 colorable, uh, but yeah, the unknot is not. So you get so you can generalize this to p colorability and get many examples of knots that are not the unknot. So you can try first of all in this draw. So here, try to see which are tricolorable, which are not. Here also I had an exercise, right? So here, solve this exercise, determine if these are tricolorable or these are not tricolorable. That will give you that some of these are knots and some of these are uh, not tricolorable. That would not mean it's not and not. Right. So that's it for invariants. Not invariants, but this colorability part. Now, okay, how much time do I have left? I have 10 minutes left, right? Okay, I'll cover one result, one short result. So a useful way, I'll give a useful way to notate the knots and also a fun result in the end. So this is called Conway's notation. Conway, if you know, he was a very famous mathematician. Uh, so Conway gave this notation of knots, of notating knots, that is very useful in characterizing some knots, and also there are various applications of actually the applications of knot theory are like very widespread, like in biology, chemistry, and physics. In DNA, for example, there is something called knotting in DNA, which uses this Conway's notation a lot and gives various results in DNA theory, if you may call that, using this Conway notation. Right. First, let's of all let us define what a tangle is. A tangle in a knot projection is a region in the projection. So we have a knot. We have its projection on a plane. A tangle is a region enclosed by a circle, such that a knot crosses the circle. Okay, this should be the circle, such that the circle crosses the knot exactly 4 times. So, for example, here you can see this whole region inside is a tangle. So this let me change the color. This. These 4 are the intersection points for the circle, and we notate the and here also let's first look at some examples. This is a region enclosed by this 4 knots. This is a tangle. This is a tangle enclosed by this circle. So we get these 4 intersection points, and we notate the 4 intersections points by northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. So this is northeast. This is southeast. This is southwest. Actually, this is better. This is northeast. Right, and we notate the 4 intersection points using this. So tangles can be thought of as building blocks of knot projection. And we say 2 tangles are equivalent if we can get from one to another through a series of Reidemeister moves. So such that the 4 points, first of all, the 4 endpoints must remain fixed. So we are performing all the Reidemeister moves inside the circle, and we are ensuring that the 4 endpoints remain fixed, and also the what is inside remains inside during the whole transformation. So the strings of tangle never go outside the circle in the deformation. So it's just ensuring that the whole tangle process takes inside the circle, and it does not interact with the outside knot because the 4 endpoints are fixed. Some examples, these are equivalent angles, as you can see. So suppose this was this. Right. These two are equivalent in the sense we basically like okay. So let me highlight this part. So this part, I did a planar isotopy on it and did some poking. This is a poke move, right? I stretched it first and then did some did a poking on it. So we get these two tangles are equivalent. Similarly, you can see all these tangles are equivalent. Okay. Right. Now, note if we form a knot using a single tangle. So suppose I give you this tangle. This is my eraser. So this is a tangle, and suppose I join these two ends and join these two ends, I get a knot, right? And similarly, if I join these two ends and join these two ends, I get a knot which is essentially made up of this tangle. No, so basically we can form a knot using a single tangle. Excuse me just a second. Yeah, right. So if we form a knot using a single tangle and join the endpoints pairwise, the equivalence of knots would depend on the equivalence of tangles. So because so we had this, whatever is happening inside. Suppose we have two equivalent tangles, and their knots would also be equivalent, and so on. Because we are always fixing the endpoints, and nothing that is inside the circle goes ever outside. So what happens inside remains inside. So the equivalence of tangles would correspond to equivalence of knots. So here are some simple tangles. So we can always have some so this is a tangle like this. This is called the infinity tangle whenever you have a vertical two strands that do not interact with each other. This when they are horizontal, it's called zero tangle. This is a three tangle. So we had a zero tangle, but instead of without interacting, we had we just so you can see going from here. So we made it pass through it. We made it poke itself, right? This is the poke move. So given two, you can get this and this. Right. So these are some simple tangles. So how do we notate these tangles? So I call this a three tangle. First of all, why? Because it has three crossings. That's how three would come. But there is something also called -3 tangle. So how we determine this this sign is basically look at your knot. So suppose this was your knot. Look at your tangle. So this was my tangle, and this goes here. Notice the overstrand here. When it enters your tangle, when it enters your circle, this has positive slope, right? Here it has positive slope, so I label it +3 tangle. Suppose I had like this was actually this. Okay, so this. So is actually if this was the understrand. Now this overstrand has a negative slope. These two tangles are not equivalent. This tangle, the overstrand has now the negative slope, so this is called -3 tangle. That's how we notate these tangles. Now, how do we build more tangles from a given one? How we build more tangles is, so I'll explain using this example. So we have a tangle. We take a tangle for example, this was my tangle, and I take the direction northwest to southeast. So this is my line northwest to southeast. What I do is reflect the knot across this direction. So when I reflect this across this line, I get this knot. So I'm combining. I'm combining 3 tangle plus 2 tangle. I'm joining 3 tangle with 2 tangle. How we do that is first we reflect the first tangle we want to join by reflecting it across the northwest southeast line, and once we get this we get the reflection, we take the two right side endpoints and add the 2 tangle to it. So this is your 2 tangle, as you can see, this and this is your 2 tangle. I just joined it to the right end of the initial tangle. Now suppose I have this 3-2 triangle, right? Let me erase this. Now suppose what I get is a 3-2 triangle. So that's how I notate it. A 3 triangle joined with a 2 triangle is called 3-2 triangle. Sorry, 3-2 triangle. That would mean the 3 triangle was first reflected across the northwest southeast line and then joined to the 2 triangle using the right side, the right endpoints. Now suppose I want to build 3-2-4. I've already built 3-2, right? So I take the 3-2, I reflect it across this line. That's what I get, this part. And then I joined the excuse me. So this was my 3-2 triangle. I reflect it across this part. We get this triangle, and to the right end points, we join the 4 triangle. This is actually 3-2 minus 4. So we join the -4 triangle because the overstrand has negative slope. So this builds us 3-2 minus 4. How is this notation useful? Now, this notation is useful because so any tangle that I get using a series of operations like this, so it's like A1, A2, like joining -A3 and so on. This is called a rational tangle. A tangle which I build using these operations, joining any K nodes, K to L to M and so on. This is called a rational tangle. A rational tangle, how it helps is we associate a number to rational tangle. How we associate a number is, so first we associate a number to a rational tangle. How we do that is basically, so for example, I'll explain you using the example 3-2 minus 4. First of all, what you do is you take the first. Actually, let me do it with a better example. Suppose I have to show. I get two. Suppose I have these two triangles, 2, 1, 1, and just a second. I'll look at what example I solved earlier. Oh, I solved this one. Right. This one is a better one. So suppose two triangles are made up of this. So this is say -2, 3, 2, and this is 3, -2, 3. What I do is I take the first one -2 and I do it one by this, like put this into the denominator. I get -1 by 2. That's my first operation. Second is I add 3 to it. So 3 minus half. Next, we again get a number. So we invert it again and add it to 2. So basically, if we get another number a, we would do this whole by 1 and then add a to it. So we get a continued fraction. So this would give me a value. So what would this be? So 3 minus half, that's 6 minus half, 5 minus 2, 2 plus 2 by 5, that's 10, 12 by 5. Is that 12 by 5? Yeah, that's 12 by 5. So this is equal to 12 by 5. So you can imagine this triangle you had this -2. So you build this the same way, like have the -2 triangle, flip it, reflect it, add the 3, 1 to it, reflect it again, and add the 2, 1 to it. What's a continued fraction related to this? So we have 3. I put 1 by 3. I have -2. I add -2 plus 1 by 3, and I have one more integer 3. So I add 3 to it. What's that? So that's 3 minus 2. That's 6 minus 5 by, no, that's -5 by 3, right? So that's -3 by 5. Yeah, so that's also 12 by 5. We see that there may be some tangles that correspond to the same continued fraction, the value of the continued fraction. Theorem. The theorem is that two rational tangles are equal if and only if their continued fraction yield the same result. This is a very surprising theorem. So having these triangles and having a way of joining them, we get that two rational triangles are equal if and only if their continued fractions are equal. So this would mean that this minus 2, 3, 2 and this triangle and this triangle is equal. So you would ask, how is it helpful? But because this statement. If we form a knot using a single triangle and join the endpoints pairwise, the equivalence of knot would depend on the equivalence of triangles. So suppose I add this minus to some legs. So this is happening and this is minus. Let me draw it there. So suppose this was triangle corresponding to minus. This is the endpoints coming out. Minus 2, 3, 2, and I join this with this, and I have this corresponding to that 3 minus 2, 3. 3 minus 2, 3. These triangles are moved. And again I join these two triangles. Because the triangles are equivalent because of the continued fraction, these all knots are equivalent. So that's how you get a whole lot of knots that are equivalent. You can actually do up to go up to crossing number 10 to get various knots that are equivalent to each other because of this this rational triangle factor. No, this theorem is hard to prove. This is difficult to prove. So we won't do. I just wanted to mention this theorem, but this is difficult to prove. If you want, you can read it. I'll let you know some source. Some more. Try this exercise. This is more of an calculation now, more than an exercise. Show that the rational triangles to 1, a1 till an, and minus 2 to a1 till an are equivalent. Of course, using continued fractions. So if you show that these two rational triangles of and a1 to an, you have a whole lot of freedom. So you get various knots that are equivalent. So try this exercise. So yeah, I guess that's it for today. So what we mainly discussed was, let me just go through it all. First of all, we defined the knots. We defined the projections of it. We saw that we can we can continuously deform one into another. That's how we define the equivalence of knots. Excuse me. And we saw that improving non-equivalence invariants would help us. And then these crossings and some exercises. The main part was this only, that deformation of an equivalent. So the main two results or main two parts that we did today was, so first of all, this deformation of knots, which Reidemeister moves underlie these deformations, these continuous deformations, these ambient isotopies in projections. So we saw three Reidemeister moves, and they saw a theorem that which we did not prove, that two projections of the same knot can be deformed from one to another using a series of Reidemeister moves and planar isotopies. And then we wanted to show that there exists some knot which is not the unknot. So we depended on invariance for that, and we defined tricolorability, and we proved that Reidemeister moves preserve tricolorability, and trefoil knot is tricolorable, but the unknot is not, the figure 8 knot is not. That means the trefoil knot is distinct to both of these. So this is a very major result, that trefoil knot is not a knot, and trefoil knot is not figure 8 knot. Then we generalize this tricolorability to not generalized, but gave an idea that this can be generalized to p colorability for any prime p. And yeah, so that's what we did. So for any prime p, we showed that these that this labeling scheme that we get, or you can replace this by colors also. These integers, you can replace these integers by colors. So try to see the equivalence between the colorability condition and this this x plus 5 minus 2 z is congruent to 0 mod p condition. And yes, basically solve this b part. Solve this one. Reinterpret tricolor in terms of numerical scheme like the one we just applied to the figure 8 knot. Yeah. So we saw that figure 8 knot is also not. We proved this a part of the exercise, and we showed that the figure 8 knot is also not the unknot. It's also not trivial. And then we saw the convex notation, and we showed equivalence in tangles. We did not prove the result that rational tangles are equal if and only if their continued fractions are equal, but it's a cool fact to know that these equivalence of tangles result from something algebraic or something analytical, which is the continued fractions. Yeah, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Does anyone have any doubts? No one?
So we can end here, I guess.
Yeah, we can end here. So we meet day after tomorrow, right? Till then, try to solve these
Meet in
exercises.